Blog Talk Radio.
Franchise interviews from Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia. You're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews. Welcome to Franchise Interviews, an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship. Listen to interviews with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys. And now, welcome your host, Marty McDermott, and Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 17 years now, we've been asking the Frantrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and we have a great show. We're meeting with Aicha Bascaro, and Aicha is the founder and CEO of the American Franchise Academy and 30-year veteran of the franchise industry. Aicha has lived in 14 countries, working with master franchise organizations, leading franchise companies, and managing franchise operations for brands like Domino's Pizza, Popeyes Louisiana Kitchen, and Olive Garden. Aicha is also a coach, speaker, and author of Amazon's best-selling book, The Franchise Fix, and Multi-Unit Franchise Mastery. We're going to talk to Aicha about that in just a moment on Franchise Interviews. So stick around because we have a great show.
Franchisers, are you looking to reach aspiring entrepreneurs looking to buy a franchise? Are you looking to reach a highly educated audience on franchising? For over 8 years, Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship through our website, franchiseinterviews.com, where you can hear and read interviews as well as get tips from some of the most successful sources in franchising. Our weekly franchise radio show, where each week you get to hear a new interview with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys, and our podcast, Great Quotes in Franchising. For more information, go to franchiseinterviews.com or call us at 610-905-2919. That's 610-905-2919.
Hi, this is Connie McDermott, Administrative Assistant for Franchise Interviews, and you are listening to Franchise Interviews.
Franchise Interviews from Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia. You're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 17 years now, we've been asking the Frantrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and as we were saying earlier, we have a great show. We're meeting with Aicha Bascaro, and Aicha is the founder and CEO of the American Franchise Academy and a 30-year-plus veteran in the franchise industry. Hi, Aicha. How are you? Welcome to the show.
Hi, Martin. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you, Aicha. This is my pleasure. We always like to ask, where are you calling from today, Aicha?
I'm in Atlanta, Georgia.
It's great to have you on the show. You know, I've been researching your background over the last several weeks, and I mean, I found your story fascinating, Aicha. I thought, you know, maybe we can go to the beginning, because you're a true franchise expert, and I think I recall you even got your start. I think, were you delivering pizza? Maybe we can go back to like that time and you know, everything you've done, you know, after that.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, the way that I was introduced to franchising was I had finished college, had a little business. I failed within a year. I was 21 years old, and I wanted to get a job that was easy until I figured out what I want to do with my life. And a pizza delivery driver went by, and when I saw that, I said, well, you know what, that must be a great job. You know, you are driving in your car, listening to music. Everybody's happy to see you. And I figured, you know what, why not do that, right? So I started, and I became a pizza delivery driver. And I fell in love with the industry. It just happened to be a corporate store for Domino's. And I fell in love with everything they had to offer and all the education and systems and processes. And that was the beginning of a 37-year career.
That's amazing, Aicha. I mean, 37 years. I mean, I've been doing this show now 17 years, and I can't say I've had a lot of people on the show who have been doing this as long as you've been doing it. And then, you've also worked with some other, like really big name brands that have actually been on the show. You got involved with, was it Popeyes? I think, was that following Domino's?
Yeah. So, within Domino's Pizza, I did pretty much every job. I was a delivery driver. I was assistant manager, district manager. I went to international. I opened the first store in Spain, the first store in Dominican.
Wow.
I did several years in international. I oversaw Central America and the Caribbean. Eventually, I went back to the headquarters, worked with the COO for 4 years in strategic media, the projects. And then eventually I went and run operations in Atlanta, overseeing the 60-plus company stores in 3 states. Did that for 3 years. Eventually, I moved to distribution. I was trained and managed a distribution center for a little while for Domino's. They have their own supply chain. And then that was almost 20 years with them. And then the next 5 I spent at Popeyes. And out of the 5, the first year I ran company operations. The next 2 I was in op services and doing strategic initiatives of speed of service. And the last 2 I went back to international. So I was doing training and operations for their 26 countries. Didn't want to travel anymore. So then I moved on to Darden Restaurants, Olive Garden. I was a DO for them for Georgia and Alabama. And run operations for a little while until I got offered what I believe to be my dream job of running a brand, a little small brand called Pretzel Maker. And I did that for a little bit, and but then I decided that I needed to do something else and decided to take a sabbatical. And during that supposedly sabbatical, I started getting phone calls from brands and franchisees asking me for help.
Yes.
People that I met, that I did that I known through my career. And so I started helping them and answering. And the questions they were asking me were all about management of the business. And so that's where the American Franchise Academy, was born. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. What do you like most about franchising, Aicha? How did because you have all this experience. You've been in the industry such a long time. So what do you like most about franchising?
Honestly, I really love the systematic processes. How if you have processes, procedures, and policies in place, and you actually execute them with a high level of excellence, you will have consistent results. I really love that predictability, of the franchise world, and the fact that because it's a process and procedure, anybody that implements them is able to be successful in that.
Right. One of the things you talk about, which I found fascinating, Aicha, is it's called the franchise success formula. Maybe, you could talk a little bit about that, because I think that's interesting.
Yeah, and it goes back to the systems, right? There is a formula on the franchise business that if you follow that formula, you will be successful. Like it starts with having a proven brand. If you have a proven brand that has the proper product, service, processes, procedures, image, marketing, that's the formula. If you do that, product, service, image, marketing, then you will have a proven brand that will then produce revenue. Now, of course, the model has to be right, meaning that the model that was created for that brand needs to be right in terms of, if financially speaking, it has to work. It has to have a unit economic. If the average person manages it, then it will be successful, right? And so, and so that's a formula from the brand side. But then there's another formula from the business side, right? And that is how you manage that brand so that you can turn it into profit. And the formula is around, and the formula is about income, and the formula is around, profit or managing costs, and then the formula for scaling. One unit is a job, multi-unit is an enterprise, and so it's really a formula. If you follow that formula and you implement the processes and procedures, behind them, you will have consistent results. The key is implementation, at high level of execution. And so from that came, Franchise Success Formulas, which is the podcast that I have on YouTube and iTunes and Spotify. You can follow us there that talks about all these formulas, what exactly they are, so that if you follow them, you will have consistent results.
What are Aicha, some of the changes, that you've noticed? Because, again, you're coming up on almost like 4 decades now of being involved in franchising. So how do you see, is franchising different today compared to what it was like maybe 30 years ago?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I would say that, 30 years ago, the brands were mostly run by their original founders, even the legacy brands, right? Tom Monahan was running, Domino's, and, all these big brands that now are owned by private equity, they used to be run by founders. And so culture was very strong. You could see the personalities and the beliefs and values of those founders in those brands. It was so exciting, and so that's something that's changed. Now private equity has really changed the game and it's turned more into a money-making machine. I mean, nothing wrong with making money. I like making money, but really I feel that a lot of that passion, has been lost. And now it's upon the, upon the leaders that happen to be at the moment, whoever is CEO at the moment, to drive and try to, create that ongoing passionate culture to keep that up. So that's one of the changes. Another change I feel is before franchising was a way for an entrepreneur with dreams and hopes to be able to go into, buy one franchise and, have basically their own little business. And basically what they're doing is they're substituting their job, right? Instead of having a boss, they're their own boss. That was really, franchising was driven by single unit operators. And in the last, I would say, decade, this has really switched. It's a lot of push. And I actually like that. Not 100%, but I like the fact that it's a big push for people to go multi-unit. A lot of the brands are focused on existing franchisees, acquiring or opening more units, or the people that come in as one to then grow into a multi-unit. And so that's another change that's happened. And a third one is generational. Obviously, who are the people in the stores and, where, 30 years ago and what they were looking for, what motivated them, what inspired them is not what, for the most part, not the same today, right? People have a different focus, different, aspirations, different things they look for in a job. And as leaders, we need to adjust and adapt to, to the new way. And, I don't think it's right or wrong. I just think it's different. And we embrace that and adjust our leadership styles and skills and opportunities. We can actually, do well still, but it requires adjustment. So those, I think, are the three biggest changes.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that, Aicha. And it's interesting too. I haven't been doing this as long as you've been doing it. I started studying franchising, I guess, it was around 1999, and it was interesting because I always recall at that time, I think in the U.S. there was only I think the IFA said there was like 1,200 different systems, and then I recently heard today that they're saying there's almost 4,000 different systems to choose from in the United States. It must be confusing for somebody who's interested in getting into franchising. How do you narrow it down to one? I mean, 1,200 is enough, but then when you're talking 4,000, how do you narrow it down to that one? And it's probably not even such thing as a perfect franchise, but how do you get to that point?
Yeah, and you're speaking only about the opportunities, choices in the United States. You have another 1,000 in Mexico, another 2,000, almost 2,000 in Brazil, and another 800 in Uruguay. I mean, the options are, huge. The franchise opportunities have exploded, around the world.
Around the world, right.
Yeah, and so, I say that there's many franchises that could be the right franchise for you, the best franchise for you. And I think, it really has to start first with something that you would love to do, because once you go into business, you're going to be doing that, whatever that is, for a long, long time. And you're going to love it, because if you love it, the chances of success is going to be much higher. So that would be number one.
Yeah.
Of course, when you do that, you're narrowing the industry, right? And so you need to now focus in that particular industry and research that industry, what's available. Because, let's say that you like personal service, let's say you like spas. Well, there's all kinds of spas. There are spas focused on facials, other ones on massages, other ones on just feet, other ones on just, nails, right? So different kinds of, most of them are women, but there's some just for men. And so, narrow it down into the things that really call upon you. And then once you're getting your finalists, let's say the top 10, then you need to really start searching, economics and leadership. And innovation, and speaking with fellow franchisees or future fellow franchisees, and really do your due diligence. And that's the thing. Franchisors do a good job at doing their due diligence for franchisees. I don't think they get swept away so much by their excitement and dreams and hopes that
Yes.
that they don't really do the due diligence and take the time and really dig into things. So they really need to do that due diligence. And once you do that, once you know it's something you like, it right industry, you have research and the unit economics is correct, and then you confirm with fellow franchisees that the brand is supportive, the leadership is stable. After that, really, it's a matter of you actually following through in the brand exactly the way it's proven to be successful, and not try to be some sort of, inventor of your own thing. Because if you're going to be in franchising, you have to follow the system. And number two, you need to have the business acumen to bring out the profitability out of that brand. And you really need to know how to manage small business to do that. It's not just about having the right brand. Because franchisees still fail today in the top performing brands. But why is that? Because the franchisee does not have the business acumen, the business management skills to turn the profit from the revenue that's coming in. And so that's another part. And that is something the franchisee is responsible to bring to the table. And so I think that's how you choose your brand. Something you love, look at the industry, do your due diligence on unit economics, leadership, fellow franchisees. And then after that, you do a great job. And that's, that would be what I would suggest.
Do you find, Aicha, that a lot of because that was one of the questions I wanted to talk to you about is, because I think some people have the perception that, if it's a franchise, it doesn't fail. I think they associate it with McDonald's or something like that. So, people always say, okay, I have a franchise, so, there's no chance of failure. But as you said, some franchises do fail, and so it is disappointing. It sounds like you were saying too, is maybe that the franchisee, not all of them have an idea, like business acumen, do they understand things like break-even analysis and things like that, or do they not understand that?
The majority of new franchisees do not understand that.
Do not. That's what I was thinking.
And I would say that, we have over 3,000, almost 4,000 franchise, to choose from. Right. Not all franchises are the same, brands, right? Not all, meaning that some of them are legacy brands that have been around for decades and decades. Some of them are mature that have been around for over 10 years and, have reached, 500, 100, 500 units. Some of them are emerging brands. They may be having 50 units, 100 units, just getting to that point where they can now, and some of them are startups. Some of them have one franchise, two franchises, and so you have to know that, just because they're a franchise doesn't automatically mean that they are going to succeed. That, you need to see how successful they have been already. Now, just because they're new doesn't mean that they're not going to succeed. It just means that the risk of them not succeeding is higher. And so that's the thing. You need to really look at the brand itself, that they're not all the same. And the younger they are, the better you need to be a business so that you can overcome whatever the franchisor has not figured out yet, right? And even McDonald's closes. So I know people think, if you buy McDonald's or you get a McDonald's, they're not going to close. That's not the case. You'll find McDonald's that close. And a lot of them are because wrong location or the franchisee did not have the business acumen. And I will tell you, having been working with lots and lots of franchisees, most of them do not know how to calculate the break even. Most of them are having issues really understanding clearly the profit and loss statement. Most of them don't understand or don't know how to be a great leader that inspires the people that will produce the results at the unit level so that they can be successful. So it's a lot of things that can have a franchise fail. Now, it's a lot less than a independent business because usually independent business don't have a proven brand. So now not only are they have to overcome the management skills, but they have to overcome the brand development part too. So at least when you have a proven brand, then the brand is proven because you've done your due diligence. So what you need to focus on is improving your skills and how to manage the business. And that will increase, not guarantee, but increase your likelihood of success.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting because I've had a lot of emerging brands on the show, over the last 17 years. And some of them I thought were amazing. I was like, oh my God, what an amazing concept, but they only had maybe 2 or 3 franchisees in the early stage, and then, 2 or 3 years later, they were kind of out of business, and I've always wondered, is that some of these are really cool concepts, but should someone be cautious if it's an emerging brand versus let's say, you've worked with some really big name brands that, your Domino's and Popeyes who were really established, but should you be cautious then? I mean, if we're talking like an emerging brand or a new brand.
I mean, you need to be cautious no matter what brand you're going in. Because even a legacy brand, you can be in a legacy brand that, has had this culture, this leadership, and then all of a sudden they're being bought by an equity firm and the world changes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the leadership changes and the values change and the culture changes and everything changes. So, I mean, you need to be cautious no matter what.
Right.
I would say that be cautious of the startup, and emerging brands. You do need to do really good due diligence and know that the risk is higher, but also the opportunity is higher because if the brand is smaller, then as a franchisee, let's say if you are one of 4 franchisees, you probably have a lot more influence on the franchisor if you have the right personality and approach and all that, right? And if you have experience and knowledge in business, you might even be able to help them, develop it. One of the things that is important for these, startup and emerging brands, and, I know you have followers that listen to your podcast, that they have to have the systems that clearly defined, documented, proper training processes, so that the franchisees have the best chances of duplicating that winning formula of the brand, right? The product, service, and image. And because sometimes they have a great, cool concept, but if they're not able to transfer that knowledge, that information, those processes, procedures, policies, and culture into the franchisee, then when the franchisee does it, it won't be the same. And so that's something that the franchisors really need to be responsible about. Really, no matter what level of franchisor, they need to be responsible about being able to provide what they're supposed to provide, which is proper systems, processes, procedures, and how to duplicate that winning brand so the franchisees have the best chances of success. And then hire the right franchisees with the right knowledge, or at least somebody that's willing to acquire the knowledge to be successful. So, yes, there is more caution on the emerging brands, but sometimes, you get the jackpot, right? Because Domino's Pizza had one store at some point in 1960.
That's true. Right.
Wendy's had one store at some point in time in 1950s, right? And so if you went in early, guess what? You won, right?
That's right.
So
that's true. That's well said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's well said. What are your thoughts on the, because I've done some studies. I've even looked at franchising from a scholarly approach. Aicha, I've written papers that have been in journals and things like that. And so one of them that I worked on, I noticed that, and it was just a sample that I looked at, but it seemed to me that franchising is sometimes an older person's game, which I guess kind of, makes sense because there's a little bit of an investment. But I imagine that some of the new, younger people are interested in franchising, they're attending franchise shows and things like that. And I guess, but they're kind of a different breed as far as leading that particular group. I mean, and I know one of the things you talk about is how do you lead the new generation? Maybe you could talk or touch a little bit on that, because I think that's interesting.
Yes, I love how a lot of people nowadays, younger people, are actually looking at franchising as a way to get into entrepreneurship. And it is absolutely a winning formula, if you do it the right way. And as a matter of fact, there is a university in Florida that's focusing on that accompanies any business student that's going through business, and then they can actually have a specialty in franchising, which I thought that was brilliant, because then it gives them these young men and women the tools so that they can make a success out of getting into franchising. You're right. I mean, one of the opening doors that they need is capital. And so that obviously is a challenge for someone that doesn't have that capital. So they need to overcome that, whether it is family, friends, and then, of course, loans. But then they have to convince the bank that they're worth the risk, etc. I love the fact that we have that energy on newer, younger generations looking at that. I think it will bring a much fresh perspective into franchising.
Yeah, me too.
And you mentioned that usually it's an older person, because what happens is either someone that was just an employee and decided to get into franchising fairly early. Immigrants is a great way for immigrants to be able to have a financial stability, which is wonderful. But a lot of people get into franchising as the next phase in their life, right? They have been an employee for a long time. They have saved, have savings, or they have 401ks, etc., and then they invest that money into franchising, and usually is the second phase in their life. So that's where a lot of franchisees have come from. But more and more people are just using franchising as a way to just grow their portfolio. A lot of people from private equity are going into not franchisor purchasing, but actual as franchisees, and they're buying packages. So, that's how a lot of younger people are going. But now, like I said, we're seeing people that are going to university, getting the specialty on franchising, and now right off the bat go into entrepreneurship with a franchise, which I think is brilliant. So I love it. I love the fact that we have all of these generations on different perspectives and diversity of thought and backgrounds, because that's just going to make the model stronger and better, I think. So I love it.
Yeah, I think so too, Aicha. It is interesting. One of the things I wanted to go back to, because I know you wrote, it was a best-selling book actually on Amazon. You wrote Multi-Unit Franchise Mastery. And so I've always been curious. I mean, so what are the challenges, because I think you're right, is that a lot of people, when they get into franchising, they just think like one single unit and then that's it, and then why not think about having multiple units? But what are some of the, from your experience, the challenges of going from 1 to 2 to 3? Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, it's a whole different world. I mean, one unit is a job, right? I mean, which is great. This way you're your own boss. You don't have to answer to anybody. That's a good thing. It can be a bad thing if you're not self-driven, right? Right. But it's really a job. Like if you have one franchise, it's fantastic. You can literally replace, your income. I would say that the manager salary, if you're running one store, you basically are getting the manager salary that you would have if you had a manager. So you're the manager, you get that salary. Let's say it's $50,000, and then the average profit for the average franchise with the average operator, right? Probably, let's say you get another $50,000 profit a year from that store. Now you're making $100,000. So if you are someone that, you make $100,000, assuming, again, you have to be the average operator, the average brand, managing in the average way, not poor, not great, but average. And the brand produces, $800,000, $1 million in sales, a year. That's kind of where you land, okay? And so if you're okay making $100,000 a year, you can do one store, you're good to go. But if you are looking for financial and time freedom, the only way to do that is with multi-unit, because one store is never going to get you there. So the problem is, the challenge is that managing one unit, it is not the same. Please listen, not the same as managing multiple. Whatever challenges you have, you're doubling with 2, tripling with 3, quadrupling with 4. Especially so if you have not defined these business management systems that you as a franchisee must create. So when you run one store, you're doing all the recruiting, all the interviewing, all the hiring, all the onboarding, all the disciplining, all the salary increases, evaluate. You do it, right? Yes. Which if you do it and if you know how to do it, you're good to go. But the moment that you have 2 stores, you cannot be in both at the same time. You cannot interview, recruit, hire, discipline both. You can't. That's when, this is where the complexity comes in. You have systems in place that you have defined and clearly document systems, processes, procedures, policies, and then document them and then transfer that knowledge to all of your managers and leaders because now they're the ones running the store. And if you don't tell them exactly, your procedures need to be as accurate, as defined, as disciplined as brand procedures. So how the brand gives you an ops manual? You need to create a management manual, because otherwise, how in the world are you going to transfer all this knowledge to your manager? And then, let's say you did it one time, and then you had turnover, they leave, and now you got to do it again. So if you don't have it documented, how are you going to do that? So now you'll become a slave to training every day, all day long, every week. But if you have a documentation and the tools created, now you have a machine to develop your leaders, to train them, a way for them to reference the documentation, just like you reference the ops manual, and that's how you are able to duplicate. So the brand is able to duplicate all these franchises because they have the ops manual to duplicate the brand. Now you as a franchisee need to create your management manual so that you can duplicate your management systems. And the moment that you do that, multi-unit franchising becomes a dream, because it's as easy as you have a store, you give them an ops manual, a management manual. Now they know how to run it, go to the next store. Ops manual, management manual, go to the next store. And then you delegate operations. Eventually you hire a district manager who needs to properly train on how to be a district manager. And now you can usually it's hard to go from 1 to, let's say, 6, the first district manager area. Once you get to that 6, 5, 6, 7 unit, and you can hire a district manager, from then on, it's easy. is easy.
Right.
The first district manager area, when you're not only the owner, but you're also the district manager and the development person, is really hard. That's the first store. So I always say, get to the first district manager area as quickly as possible, because that's when you can hire a district manager, delegate operations to them, and now you can focus on growth. And then the next, continue growth, and then after that is easy because now you have the machine. Now you have the systems and the processes to do so. So that is a radical difference, one store to multi-unit.
Yeah, that's why I'm glad I asked you the question, and I'm glad you wrote the book on it, Aicha, because, I mean, it is an important topic, and it is a different ballgame. I've had some people on the show over the last, 17 years. I remember one gentleman that I interviewed. He started off with one single Wendy's franchise, and then he went to two, and I think he ended up with around 40. And I remember him talking. It was a great story, because he was mentioning that he barely graduated from high school. I think they just wanted to get him out of the school, and they gave him the degree, and he just became so successful in franchising, But you're right, multi-unit, it's interesting. And it sounds like you're a fan of that. I was interviewing a gentleman, Michael Gerber, one time, and he said most businesses fail not because they think too big, but they think too small, and sometimes I wondered if some people are afraid, you know what I mean? Or, it's scary just purchasing one single unit in itself, you know what I mean? But then moving to the second and then the third, it becomes something, it's something so different, like you said, So I think it's really interesting, everything you're doing. If you were just to meet someone for the first time, like if you were at a franchise show, Aicha, and they learned about, who you are and what you do, and you knew that they were looking for a franchise, they just kind of started out. What advice would you give them from that moment that you were interacting with them? Where do they begin the process?
Right. So rather than me giving them advice without knowing anything about them, I would start asking them questions. Yeah. Why franchise?
Well said. Yeah.
What's the goal? What do you want to achieve? Right? Because, it's true that franchising opportunity is amazing for someone that is willing to put in the work and the dedication and create all the things that I just mentioned. But if all you're looking is a place to invest money, franchising is not the easiest. Might as well just put in the stock market and get your average 10% return, or whatever the market might give you, right? 6, 7,
right.
Or put it in a mutual fund that might give you 6% return, and then you just go home and watch TV. But if you're going to get into franchising, you really need to have a very clear objective of what you want to accomplish. Because otherwise, you might be going the wrong direction, thinking that it's going to give you X when it's going to give you X plus Y plus Z.
Right.
And so I think at first I will want to know why they want to do it, and if what they want to do is they want to build an enterprise and they want to be able to lead people and service customers in the community, and then people give people the opportunities for growth and career, and they want to be able to manage a business and be an entrepreneur and grow an enterprise. And if that's what they want to do, then franchising is ideal. But if all you want is to get money back, then it might be the wrong thing. You might just put the money in some investment, because it's not for the faint at heart. I mean, this is not, you buy it and, it's not a set it and forget it type of thing. Even though some people think, oh yeah, this is good for absentee owners. And let me tell you, absentee owners, the business either does not do well or does not do anywhere as near as well as it could be if the owner was not an absentee.
Right.
And they find out this quickly. So the first thing I would do is, why do you want to do it? And once they tell me, and they tell me the truth, the real truth, then I will tell them, it has to be something you like, in the industry that you like, and then all the other steps that I was mentioning before. But first and foremost is, what is your goal? And because, one of the things I tell our clients is that when you say yes to franchising, you say yes to becoming a mom, a dad, a coach, a psychiatrist, to teach new people how to be employees, because most new employees do not know how to be employees, and parents didn't teach them how to be employees, and if they're going to come work for you, you got to teach them how to be employees and what it means, and you have to, deal with the drama, or find a way to not have to deal with the drama, or to eliminate the drama and inspire people and deal with people calling out, and all the other things that come with franchising. And sometimes people complain about their, employees or people. I say, well, when you say yes to franchising, you say yes to that. So you need to either embrace it or get out, because otherwise you're going to be miserable. So embrace it or get out. I literally tell them that, because you don't want to be, otherwise you'll be miserable, and you didn't go into this to be miserable. So think about it, and, and that's the deal. So, so I love franchising. I love everything of franchising. I love the fact that we are hiring people and we're giving them opportunities. I love the fact that I get to dictate the culture in which they're going to work every day. I love the fact that I can hire someone that maybe not even have a high school degree, like that person that Wendy's, and they can become a millionaire. I would tell you, Domino's has probably produced the most millionaires, employee millionaires that become a franchisee than any brand in the U.S., right? It is possible. You don't have to have a college degree, not even a high school degree. Right. If you learn how to do all these things, anything is possible in franchising. Right. But you got to do the work. It is not set and forget it. And that's something that's going to be very important for anybody considering it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
I think that's well said. And this is your 8th year of doing this, Aicha. So I'm curious, because you're doing very well, and I've been very familiar with your name before even interviewing you. So what's kind of like in the future, when you're thinking of the American Franchise Academy, if it's like 1 year down the road or 3 years or 5 years, where do you see AFA?
Yeah, you know what? We're so excited. I mentioned I started as a pizza delivery driver. I have been a manager, district manager. I've been in international. I lived in 14 countries, opened the first Domino's in Spain, the first in Dominican. So I have had a lot of experience running operations on all these brands. I spent a third of my career running operations, P&L responsibility, a third of it in the corporate headquarters, executive levels, working side by side with COOs, managing the brands, and my other third is international. Like I said, living in 14 countries and running operations. And I did that the first 27, 28 years of my career. And since the Academy was founded, by the way, July is going to be its 8th anniversary, July 2024, the 8th anniversary of the creation. Thank you. And it's funny because we started just focusing on franchisees and helping them create those systems and processes that I was mentioning. We actually teach them what they are, how to define them, how to think about what they should be, and to guide them on what is the right way for them. And we actually co-create that management manual that I was mentioning. So by the time they're done with that program, they have the management manual, and that gives them the ability to grow multi-unit. But then we found out and realized that as they grew, they hired the district manager, right? The first golden district manager that gives them the time freedom. Now they can delegate operations to them. However, these franchisees did not know, okay, what do the district manager do? What are their responsibilities? What should be their routines? I don't know. We don't know what they do. And so we created 3 years ago a 10-week program to train those men and women of exactly what's their role, what are their responsibilities, what are the tools they should be using, what are the routines they should be doing every day, every week, every month, so that they can do that job successfully. We've done that now 3 years this spring, and we have trained over 250 district managers now. Wow, and, that's amazing. And anybody in the market, that if you have a district manager and you want to train them on how to do the job more effective so that they can actually have not only great results, but a quality of life, because that's one of the things with the district managers. They work too many hours because they don't have the tools and how to be effective. So we did that. And then our clients kept asking, oh, what about unit manager? I'm like, unit manager? I said, the franchisor does a great job at teaching us how to do the product, the service, the image, but how do I teach them how to recruit, interview, hire, how to manage the business, how to, do all those things? And I'm like, you're right. And so we launched last year a unit manager basics class, where it's a 4-week class where any assistant manager that runs a shift can learn in those 4 weeks how to run that shift, that unit profitably and successfully. And we have so far trained over 100 unit managers so far since last year. And it's been amazing. The next class starts tomorrow for the summer. Oh, great. And I know. And then we are launching a unit manager advanced this fall. And we're going to be focusing on that, and so because obviously so much information. I mean, we're literally giving these women and men a business degree in franchise management in those, few weeks. We focus on the tactical and practical, step 1, step 2, step 3, right? None of the fluff, none of the theory. You go to college and you learn about history and calculus and all that. Yeah, we just do no. We do tactical, practical, and that's what we can do it so easy. So if you go through the unit manager basics and then you go through unit management advanced 5 weeks later, then you get certified in unit management from us. And our 10-week program for district managers is also a certification from the academy. And so that's what we're focusing on. For this year, next year, what we're doing is we're going to Spanish, actually, because we have had a lot of customers asking us for Spanish. And so a lot of people like in Texas and California, and even we have people in Latin America. They're calling us because they all need this. And so we're going to Spanish next year. So that's the focus. Basically, launch the advanced class in the fall and go to Spanish next year. Yeah. So that's what we're doing, and we focus 100% on helping franchisees keep and maintain their American dream of business ownership through franchising. That's our purpose every day. What we do. Helping franchisees do that.
Wow. Are they able to do it so online? So they don't have to come to headquarters for the training, Aicha? Like they can actually do it online?
Yeah, all is virtual. For the district manager, the unit manager, think of it as a college class, right? I mean, we were doing Zoom before Zoom was a thing, right? We were doing Zoom before COVID, right?
Right,
And so basically, the way that the program works is you have online lessons so that we have very structured, consistent learning. But then they come to a weekly discussion call with an experienced instructor where the students are all there together. The maximum size class is 25. And they have a great discussion with the instructor about real scenarios, real things that are happening, and talk about all the topics and the theme of each week. Then they have assignments. They have action items where they implement what they're learning. So, for example, for a district manager, one of the lessons is the 5 steps of an effective visit. So we teach them what the 5 steps is. Then we discuss it online on the call with the instructor. Okay. And then we give them a template that they download, and then they take our logo out, put their logo in, they adjust the template to their brand. Then the homework or the action item is now you go do an effective unit visit, document it, and then submit the template, the form, complete it as a proof that you did it. And like that, there are like there are like 40 exercises like that where they're actually implementing the job. When I say tactical practical, I really mean tactical practical, right? And then at the end, they had to have a final exam that they had to pass with 90%. And if they pass, now they will be certified, and we have a graduation. We actually invite them and the direct supervisors to celebrate their accomplishment. So that's a methodology that we follow for the district manager class and the unit manager classes. They're all managed the same way. And so I think it is really, truly learning.
Yes. I think it's wonderful, Aicha. How can our listeners, Aicha, get more information on, for one, getting the book? I guess they can go to probably Amazon, right? There's 2 books. There's one and you talk a lot about was the Franchise Fix, and then the Multi-Unit Franchise Mastery, which were also, they were best-selling books. And then, maybe like a website, you can kind of plug them like American Franchise Academy, or is there anywhere they can go to get more information on all the services that you provide?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, the Franchise Fix, you can get it both in Amazon or from our website. In our website, you can also get it package discount. So let's say that you're a franchisor, you listen to this podcast, and you would like to give your franchisees a book that teaches them how to manage one store. You can buy a package of 5 and 10s in our website at a discount. And franchisees do that. Actually, for Christmas, a lot of franchise stores have actually bought the book to give a gift to their franchisees.
That's great.
And the Multi-Unit Mastery is not in print yet. I'm working on that, but it's on Kindle on Amazon. So you can absolutely get that in Amazon for sure. It's all about our programs for the Command program for franchisees and the Lead program for district managers and the Manage program for unit managers. You can find all that information on our website at www.americanfranchiseacademy.com. From there, you can send us messages. You can have an appointment with admissions and learn everything about everything that we do.
That's fantastic. Well, I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed talking to you today, Aicha, and I'd like to invite you back maybe like in 6 months or a year down the road, because I still have so many more questions. I could talk to you all day about this topic, so I'd love to have you back in the future if you don't mind, and continue the conversation.
I would love to. Yes, that would be fantastic. I would love to. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, this has been my pleasure, Aicha, and we'll be right back with more franchise interviews. Coming up in our next segment, we'll be playing a clip from our Great Quotes in Franchising podcast right here on Franchise Interviews.
Franchisers, are you looking to reach aspiring entrepreneurs looking to buy a franchise? Are you looking to reach a highly educated audience on franchising? Franchise Interviews, an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship through our website, franchiseinterviews.com. Or you can hear and read interviews as well as get tips from some of the most successful sources in franchising. Our weekly franchise radio show where each week you get to hear a new interview with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts and attorneys, and our podcast, Great Quotes in Franchising. For more information, go to franchiseinterviews.com or call us at 610-905-2919. That's 610-905-2919.
Today's Great Quote in Franchising is being brought to you by
Franchise Teacher.
Would you like to know how to franchise your concept or grow your franchise business?
Meet the experts at Franchise Teacher.
The goal of Franchise Teacher is to teach, coach, consult, and advise. The team of experts at Franchise Teacher will evaluate your business model and present you with a winning business strategy.
Franchise Teacher will help you decide whether or not your concept works and if it's franchisable. Franchise Teacher is proud to have over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors.
Franchise Teacher are developers of over a dozen franchise systems, which include brick and mortar as well as home-based concepts of nearly 3,000 combined franchise locations.
Whether you need to add more units or get more customers, Franchise Teacher can help. We will teach.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn our proven system.
Coach.
Franchise Teacher will help you provide a game plan to succeed.
Consult.
Franchise Teacher will make sure you stay on track.
And advise.
Franchise Teacher will help you learn from our over 30 years of experience in franchising as both franchisees and franchisors. Take advantage of our free, no-obligation phone consultation. Simply go to franchiseteacher.com or call us at 561-385-3032.
That's franchiseteacher.com. Or call us at 561-385-3032.
Hi, everyone. This is Marty McDermott, the president of Franchise Interviews, and welcome to another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising, where each podcast you get to hear a great quote in franchising. We've been hosting Franchise Interviews many years now, and during that time, we've had some incredible quotes on our show. Today, you're going to get to hear from Nick Friedman, who is the founder of College Hunks Hauling and Junk and Moving Franchise Opportunity. And Nick said something really quite brilliant on our show that we haven't heard in over a decade of doing franchise interviews. We started speaking about the 4 F's of franchising, and interesting enough, we ended up with 5 F's of franchising as we were doing the interview with Nick. And, in marketing, we talk about the 4 P's of marketing, which is product, price, promotion, and place. So I thought this was really brilliant what Nick said. So here we go with Nick Friedman, the founder of College Hunks Hauling and Junk Moving Franchise Opportunity. What, the majority of our listeners, we call them, Nick, we call them aspiring franchipreneurs. What types of characteristics do you look for in your franchisees?
What I like to say is there's 4 F's when considering a franchise, which is also, I guess, starts with a letter F. So, there's 4 F's that come out of franchise. And I think this is what a prospective franchise should think of when they're considering what franchise they want to pursue. And this is, quite frankly, I think what franchisors should consider when they're evaluating a prospective franchisee. So the first F is fit, Do they fit In other words, do they have transferable skills that can make them effective at this business? Have they done anything in their prior professional or personal lives that would make them be successful in this type of business? The second piece is the family side. In other words, does their family support them in them pursuing this endeavor, whether it's their husband or wife or kids or parents? Do they believe in them? Because you don't want things to get tough in their inner circle to say, I told you so. You want them to, kind of cheer them on to get through it. The financial piece is important. In other words, are they capitalized to be able to invest in the opportunity, and do they have realistic financial expectations? And then the last F is the fun factor. Can we have fun working with this individual? Franchising is very much like a partnership, even though that's not typically called that. So you got to have, an alignment of vision and values to be able to enjoy working together. So that's really what we look for. We want people that believe in the secret sauce that we've already developed. We don't want somebody to come tell us that they think it should be done differently. We want them to tell us that they believe in what we've created. And sure, we would, want to continuously improve and encourage ideas, but we want folks that believe in the system and are going to execute the system rather than trying to shortcut success by doing it their own way. And I think that's, really no different in our system than any other franchise model that is going to be successful long term. They need to really take into account those factors.
That's great, Nick. We have this great quotes and franchising podcast. Anytime we hear, Michael Gerber's been in there a couple of times, but we're going to put that one in there because I haven't heard that in over a decade, and I think that's great advice to our listeners. It's really fantastic because it's true. I mean, you could really, your business, you could teach to anybody, couldn't you? I mean, pretty much, but it's interesting in putting those factors in there, like family support, and even fun. I haven't heard that, but it should be an enjoyable business. And, because it is a stressful situation for the customers, I guess you got to be able to put a smile on your customer's face, don't you?
Absolutely. And I mean, as you know, there's over 3,000 franchise opportunities out there. So, what's going to separate one from the other? It's got to be something that you can enjoy. And I guess I'll grab another F out of there. I'm on a roll here. Fulfillment. Is it something that, we're going to be fulfilled doing day in and day out? Because I think franchising is a lot like a gym membership. If you join a gym and you've got fitness goals, you're getting access to all types of equipment, personal trainers, coaches, workout groups, but you still got to go and show up and do the work. So if you buy a franchise, you're getting access to the business model in a box. You're getting access to trainers, coaches, fellow franchisees that you can, hold each other accountable with, but you still got to show up and put in the effort to execute that business model. So that's where I think those factors come into play.
Once you decide that, you do like them, and they like you, Nick, and there is a fit, what is the training like? I mean, do they typically come to Florida for training? How does that work? If you'd like to hear that whole interview with Nick Freeman of the College Hunks Hauling and Junk Moving franchise opportunity, all you have to do is go to franchiseinterviews.com, go to our franchise interviews by category page, and then go to our home repair and improvements page, and you'll be able to listen to that whole show with Nick Freeman. It was really a fantastic interview. It was great to finally have Nick on the show. And lastly, we'd just like to thank everyone for making this podcast such a big hit. It's hard to imagine. We've been doing it now over 10 years, and it's just amazing to see where the podcast has gone. So thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you again soon with another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising, sponsored by Franchise Interviews. Take care, everyone.
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.